Looks like we're here. So hopefully we don't get cut off today because it's been nice the last several shows not being cut off. So I'm praying it doesn't happen because even though I still have my backup stream ready to go, linked in the description, it's really nice if I don't have to do that. It's just, it's less stress and hassle. But I'm a little concerned because I noticed that the chat disconnected and then reconnected. So not a good sign. So let's pray that the show goes well. So yes, happy Resurrection Day, and for those who keep the feast, we all have a lot of us follow different calendars, but for many today would be the day of first fruits. So that's what it is for us today, though it's not a rest day. That was yesterday. It was a double rest day. So I will say, I got a couple minutes before I got to get started, that even though the fellowship we're a part of keeps a slightly different schedule than we do, it has been a blessing. So tomorrow they're actually having their last day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So it's going to be their holy day, their Sabbath. So we're going to try to make it to, they got a meeting at their house. So we're going to try to make it to that. I totally planned on it. I watch Jace typically on Mondays, but Justin doesn't usually work Mondays, but he has to work tomorrow morning. But it looks like he should be off in time to come pick him up before we have to leave, because it's about a 10-minute drive to get to the place. But especially since we had to miss our fellowship yesterday, I really want to be there tomorrow. Anyway, so it's been a real blessing. And it's cool that we can actually, sorry, my knees bump on the table. It's cool that we can actually just kind of discuss what we find in scriptures and, our own convictions based, I don't want to say own convictions, but because, no scripture is supposed to be left to private interpretation. But we're all trying to read it and seek it and pray for God's guidance as we understand how all this works, because we've all been born and raised following a Gregorian calendar and understanding the new moons and who considers what the new moon, and it can be really confusing. And I think that's why scripture, I believe, is pretty clear on the matter. But I think because of our way we've been born and raised, it can be hard to try to grasp some of that stuff. Kind of like the topic I was speaking of on Wednesday about the weights and measures and metric and standard and, or American standard, whatever it's called. It can be really confusing. So, you know what? We just do the best we can and follow God's leading. And as he impresses it on our heart and shows us in his word, we do the best we can. But regardless, it has been a real blessing. So we went over there to their house for their Passover meal, which they do more like the Lord's Supper, like communion, I'll say. But it was still, I really enjoyed it. It was absolutely 100% a blessing being there. And so, yeah. Anyway, just thankful that the Lord has led us to that group. A lot of good people in there. And it's nice to have a fellowship where, you can talk, you can really dig deep into the scripture and discuss these things. And of course, we sing hymns and songs and just have a really good time, really blessed time. So anyway, let me go and get to my subject because it is now a quarter till. Let me remind you guys, though, if I get cut off, if the stream if it just stops, that means I'll make sure that I make an announcement in the chat that go to the backup stream that's linked in the description, but you'll have to give me a chance to set it on public. And you may even have to refresh the page a couple times. If you go in there, it shows it's private. You might have to refresh it. But it just takes a few minutes for me to get that up and going. Anyway, so today, let me do my greeting. Hello, everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. It's funny how I do my live show greeting just a little bit different than my other one. I don't know why that is. My other one, just got this habit of saying it a certain way. And then when I get here, it's like it comes out totally different. Maybe it's something different about sitting here, being live, and staring directly at the camera rather than standing up over there or in my kitchen or out on the deck, which is normally what I do. Which we're coming up. I usually don't bother shooting videos on the deck until my grapevines fill in and it looks really pretty. So that will be coming up after a while. My grapevines are getting their little buds. So anyway, today we're talking about, is fermented foods or fermenting for everyone? Now, what I'm going to say right off the bat that might surprise you is no. And I'm sure T will appreciate this one. Because I know how T feels about fermented foods. It's twofold, really. Not everybody likes the flavor of fermented foods, and I don't blame them. I do with most things. Patrick doesn't like any of it that I know of. He doesn't like yogurt. He does not. He can't get past the smell of kimchi, so he doesn't like that. Uh, obviously there's things that have like vinegar used in them, and that's fine. But yeah, mostly he doesn't like that kind of stuff. He does like my homemade wine. We don't drink it very, very much. Tea. But every now and then we might enjoy just a little bit. Like we had a little bit with our Passover meal. So just like maybe a shot of the homemade wine. And so there are usually most people can find a certain type of fermented food that they do like. So T, let me ask you a question since you're in here and I know how you feel about fermented foods, as if nobody else noticed yet. Do you like yogurt? I'm curious about that because it seems to me a lot of people who don't like fermented food will at least eat yogurt. But Patrick, like I said, he doesn't like yogurt. And so one of the main things that, oh, darn, I think I forgot the link. Oh, I was going to put a link to, oh, I know what the link was I was going to put. So maybe Deb can grab it for me. I did put the link to the fermenting playlist, but I meant to add the link to the herbs and more for digestive health. Okay. Thanks for answering me, T. I was just curious. The thing is we look at fermented foods as being, well, for one, it's a way that you can preserve foods. And two, well, these aren't necessarily order of importance. That's going to depend on the person. But the other reason is because of how beneficial they are to gut health. But you don't have to eat fermented food or always eat fermented food to be able to consume things that are beneficial to your gut health. So that is why I knew I was forgetting something. I had meant to include the link to the herbs and more for digestive health. And this isn't that, it's not all about fermented foods. It's just about herbs that will help, such as like feverfew and peppermint and ginger, things like that. There's a lot you can do to help your gut health that doesn't involve having to eat sourdough or make sourdough or eat ferments, drink ferments, and having to make them all the time. In fact, um, I don't, while I do like some fermented foods, I love kimchi, I love fermented eggs, I love yogurt and my homemade sodas, which is just a very lightly fermented drink, very lightly fermented. Just enough, just a few days, enough for it to get real fizzy. I do really like that. And there's a few other things I enjoy. But I don't like eating and drinking fermented foods all the time. And here's my second point. Even if you love fermented foods, it still might not be for you because some people can't tolerate it. It actually can have the reverse effect on their digestive health, believe it or not. So what happens is, and I was curious about this because I find if I eat a lot of fermented foods, um, too much back to back, that my stomach sometimes, it's not that I get nauseous. I don't know really how to explain it. It just doesn't feel right. And so I know when I've had too much. And so I listen to that. I pay attention to that. So Linda says, love the ferments I grew up with, like kraut and pickles. I'm not a big fan of milk based ferments, fishy things, or soy products. Yeah, soy products, especially, right? Um, uh, I'm going to touch on some other, and thank you, Deb, by the way. Thank you for doing that. If I didn't say it yet, I will touch on a few different types of ferments, but mostly so people can sort of look into, if they're trying to get into it, um, just things that they can try if you haven't already. Now, I do love yogurt, and sometimes I'll make my own, but a lot of times I'll purchase it. And here's why. For us to get a good, healthy, organic milk, especially to get raw, which is near impossible if you're talking cow's milk, well, even goat's milk out here. And for what it costs us to buy that milk, it really doesn't save me much money to buy that milk and then make the yogurt myself. I still do it from time to time, and I do have a video on making your own homemade yogurt. But I have found my most current, uh most favoritist, there's a double superlative for you. Does one if it's a double superlative, does it cancel the other one out like a double negative does? Anyway, so my current favorite yogurt is this one. Now, I've tried Nancy's organic yogurt before and I liked it, but I noticed this now that with Azure Standard, now that we have a delivery, a drop point, I'm able to try things like I was talking about in my other show, like trying meats and stuff that I wasn't able to try before. And I had not seen that I've never seen the grass fed organic, and then vanilla flavor without, I don't think it has any added sugar. It doesn't taste sweet at all. No, it doesn't. Oh wait, no, it does. It has some cane sugar. It's just very, very lightly sweetened, and it's not one of the first ingredients. I'm surprised it's non-fat milk though. It says whole milk. I'm confused. Oh, it has both. Okay, it has both. It has both. That's weird. Anyway, there's something about this in particular. I'm sure part of it's the honey, or excuse me, the vanilla, but there's something about the grass fed that just gives it I don't know, a different flavor. I'm totally love this stuff. So I'm ordering like a case of it. I say a case, but I think it would be called a case. I think it's 6. I'll say unit. And anyway, I'll be getting more of that, and I'll probably try going ahead and making some some yogurt out of that, just to see how that turns out based off of that. But at any rate, there's nothing wrong with buying your own, buying the yogurt and not having to make it yourself if you can find a good quality brand like the Nancy's Organic. There's others out there, but so far this one's my favorite of all the ones I've tried. Now, and I like to mix it with like some homemade, like blackberry jam or some other kind of berry jam that I've made. Jace absolutely loves it. Just put a little scoop of that in there and mix it up. Oh my gosh. I can't get him to stop eating it if I do that. But all my grandbabies love yogurt anyway, so that works out pretty good. There was something else I was want to say. Let me come back before I go through the list of some other ferments and things that even if you don't like fermented foods, you could still consider making for yourself because of its many benefits in other ways, not just for your digestive health. But I just want to remind everyone that just like with anything else, no one should ever assume that just because right now it's the latest, greatest, biggest thing and everybody's pushing this or they're pushing this specific saying, oh, this is the only uh culture you should use to make yogurt is the best. It's the number one. You know what's the best? What's the best is what works best for you. Why I say that all the time, right? And what we constantly see in society, constantly, it doesn't matter if it's if it's a gadget or a health claim or whatever, they all may be very, very beneficial. And different people might be very happy with how this gadget worked for whatever it is they're using it for, or how this particular ferment made them feel, or this particular herb, or taking vitamin D3, how much it helped their health. I have no problem believing that this stuff has done, wonders for a lot of people. However, that doesn't mean that is what you have to or should do. So when people go around and start preaching at people like you should take, X amount of, milligram, not milligrams, whatever, of vitamin D in my brain, again, always happens when I go live. Well, it happens when I'm shooting pre-recorded videos too, but I can at least edit that out. But it doesn't matter, what your dosage is of vitamin D3. Someone's trying to push that on you, like, this is how much you should take. This is what I take and it's best. That's what I read in a book. It does not mean it's right for you. In fact, excuse me. So irritating. I can be totally clear. And then I go live and all of a sudden this happens. What was I saying? I was talking about the vitamin D3. Um, the vitamin D3 is the same thing. You've heard me say this a lot if you followed me for any amount of time, that all the wonders of vitamin D3 and making sure you're taking it, that it's done for this person over here, can actually have an opposite effect on you or on somebody else. So, like, um, if you're taking high doses of vitamin D3 because you've been experiencing some hair loss, but now your hair loss is getting worse and you're losing more and more, that means you don't need that D3, because too much D3 can cause hair loss. Not for most people, it's going to help with hair loss, but not everyone. So the same thing applies to your fermented foods. The same thing applies to your gadgets. Some people love their freeze dryer. Some people wish they would have never invested in one. Some of us choose not to bother investing in one. And it's all going to be individual per person. So no matter how much people are preaching at you about this, that, and the other thing and what you should do, this is why I get this is why I get so irritated when people tell me you should, even those that mean it in the nicest way. I have to bite my tongue because I know they mean well, and reply with grace. Um but try the stuff. Sure. Try these things. Well, you might not want to go out and buy an expensive freeze dryer. I don't have freeze dryer. I have dehydrators. You might want to not want to go out and buy an expensive freeze dryer just to try it. What you want to do in that case is you want to try freeze dried foods from somebody else first and see if you like them and see if it's going to be worth it. And then listen to the reviews, not just those people who have a product to sell because they got one for free and they have an affiliate link that they make a commission off of, but to those who, like the stories I've shared and even pinned to the top of some in the comment section under some videos, the stories that people have shared about how they bought a freeze dryer and how they had headache after headache after headache, despite all the money they spent on that, and then it cost them that much more again well, maybe not that much more. Again, I'm exaggerating, but cost them a lot more to get it repaired, to ship it back to the company, or the company now just sends them, tells them, "We'll fix it yourself." And so then they have to do the work themselves, even though they're not, electricians and mechanics and whatever else. So, it's all of this stuff. So if you think you need D3, try it. If you start having issues, stop taking it. Same goes with your fermented foods. If you start having digestive health, you start having rashes because fermented foods can cause some people to have reactions that cause them to have rashes. Then you probably need to stop or find a different type of fermented food. It could be the food. Some people just can't handle dairy at all. So that would mean things like milk kefir, yogurt, and the like is not going to work for them. And so they have to find something else. They might prefer sauerkraut or kimchi over those things and not have an issue with it. But again, they may just flat out hate it, and they probably don't even like sourdough either. I like sourdough from time to time. I don't like it all the time. And I don't like to always make it. I'll make it basically once in a great while, but it's not something I like to do all the time or make all the time or enjoy eating all the time. So that doesn't make me wrong and the person who only makes sourdough right. It doesn't make them wrong either. It means you got to find what's going to work best for you. Now, here's the nice thing about sourdough, I will say, or like using my fermentation starter to make a bread, like a sourdough type bread, is that you don't have to rely on dry yeast. It does take longer and can be a little more work intensive, but at least you can always make a leavened bread without having to have dry yeast. And so that is a nice thing. So, and Deb, kimchi, like I think I've shared this before, kimchi was the very first food I ever fermented, ever, because I really wanted to try it. And so I thought, well, the only way I'm going to finally get to try it is to just make it myself. And my oldest son and I fell in love with it right away. In fact, I used to eat it for breakfast on a lot of days and lunch and dinner. I don't I find I can't handle eating it that often anymore like I did back in my was I in my I was in my 30s, I think. So at any rate, so I really want to bring that up and kind of cover that. So don't ever feel guilty if fermented foods of any kind are not your thing. Don't feel guilty about it. There are other options that you can do for your health. It doesn't all have to always be around fermented foods. You'll have people that's all they eat, and you'll have people that don't eat any, and then you'll have people like me that are somewhere in the middle that they do like some now and then, but I don't ferment everything and don't like to eat it all the time. Now, let me go ahead and cover a few other fermented foods. This is mostly going to be things I have made or do make. Like I said, the yogurt occasionally. For a while, I was doing water kefir. Some people might like water kefir who don't like fermented food. And that's in both the water and the milk use what they call grains, but they're not a grain. They're just like these little they seem like little silicone things, globs. But they are different from each other, the water and the milk. They're both considered kefir, but they're different. So I don't believe that they're interchangeable. If anyone knows anything more about that, I seems like I read they're not years ago that they're not interchangeable. But I've done both. The water kefir, it was okay. I played around with it. I did several videos on it and tried um, making different types of kefir, and it was fine. I like my own homemade, using my fermentation starter for a fizzy drink over that or over the kombucha, which I've done off and on. I started probably, I think the first I ever made it was maybe 30 years ago. And it was okay. I did it for a few weeks or so, and decided, "Nah, not for me." But I have my own fermented soda, and sometimes I'll do a fermented, fruit smoothie, if I got a lot of fruit coming in from the garden of various kinds. In fact, I have a video in that fermenting playlist of I have a couple of different, fermented fruit smoothie videos in there, but I think the most recent one is where I had a lot of really ripe apples. They weren't rotten, they were just really ripe, and I was trying to use them up. So I made some 3 different flavors of fermented fruit smoothie with those. I made a cherry vanilla apple. I made a ginger, what was it? Ginger cinnamon? I don't remember. I already forgot. And then what was the other one? I cannot remember. I just remember the cherry vanilla, I think, was my favorite. It was really good. So, you can do something like that if you're just fermenting it for a few days where it gets fizzy. It's not going to have that sour flavor that a lot of people don't like when it comes to certain fermented fruits and vegetables. It's actually can be quite good. But again, it's how much of it you can handle. I find that I can be very sensitive to that. So I can only handle just like, even my homemade wine, I can only handle just a tiny bit at a time. So, um, so you got that, I said your sauerkraut, kimchi, any vegetables, can just be fermenting carrots, fermenting snow peas. I'll probably do that again this year. Just ferment some snow peas, throw in some onions and garlic and some red pepper flakes to make them spicy. And that one in several years. So excited! Lots of gardening got done last week because we had some nice weather. Let's see, I mentioned the eggs, hard-boiled eggs. Again, you'll find that in there, but I have to say my newest hard-boiled egg, fermented video, I accidentally cut out the part where I add water, where I top the jar off with water and people can I show me adding the fermentation starter and other things, but somehow I accidentally cut off the part where I topped off the jar with water. So yes, I made sure I noted it in the, cutting in and out. I keep seeing it jump, so I don't know what's going on. Anyway, if you watch the egg video, make sure you top that off with water once you got your starter and all that stuff in there. I don't know how that happened. I probably was cutting out something else and accidentally just cut out a little too much. So, yes, thank you, Deb, for gathering those links and sharing them. So, hopefully, nothing really important I said got cut off. But I suppose when I do the outtake from this, I can always add text in there. So, what else? I do like sometimes fermenting garlic and onions just by themselves so that I have them in a more fresh form to use in foods rather than a dehydrated form. If it's something, it just depends on what I'm using them in. If I'm wanting to do a stir fry and I don't want to use dehydrated onions, I'll throw those in. Or if I don't, and that's if I don't have any fresh onions to use, at least I've got it fermented. So it's a way for me to preserve them in a more fresh form. Not my favorite, but because it does kind of mellow out the flavor of the onions and the garlic. It can for those who want a more mellow flavor, they might prefer that. But you're not gonna end up with so much of that fermented flavor. So some people who don't like fermented foods might not mind that so much, but if you're cooking it, you're still not gonna get all the benefits of the fermented, the live active cultures and all that, bacteria and stuff in there, because a lot of it's gonna get killed in the cooking process. Sliced fermented onions on a grilled cheeseburger, yum. Hmm, I may have to try that at some point. I just like that crunch. Fermented vegetables get softer over time, and, if the longer they sit, the softer they get. And when it comes to hamburgers and stuff like that, I like that crunch of a fresh onion in there. So let's see what else. So I mentioned the milk kefir. Now the nice thing about milk kefir is that it can be used If you don't like to drink it, which I did a little bit here and there, I'm not much of a milk drinker myself, so wouldn't say it was my favorite thing. I do have one on the spruce tip soda. I have a bunch in there in sodas. That's probably my most recent one. I think I had one on making a what is it? A hibiscus and orange peel soda. That one's pretty good. I've taken lemonade, like the organic lemonade you can get from Costco, and fermented that and make a fermented drink out of that. You can use any juice. Has anyone else's vet recommended probiotics for their dog? Mine eats my ferments. I don't know, I've never taken my dog to the vet ever. Let's see. What else am I for? Okay, so the milk kefir I was talking about. So the nice thing about that is even if you don't like to drink it, you can use, just like with yogurt, you can use your milk kefir in replacement of buttermilk to make like your ranch dressing or anything you're going to use buttermilk in, baking with, like buttermilk biscuits and pancakes. You can use your milk kefir in that. Again, you're going to be cooking that stuff, so it's hard to say how much of the beneficial bacteria you're getting, but you're getting that flavor that you get like from buttermilk or whatever that gets added to the ranch dressing and so on. Let's see. Okay, so now if I was going to recommend one thing that everyone should at least try, that is making vinegar. That is a fermented food. And the thing is usually everybody has some kind of use for vinegar. And it's so easy to make it yourself out of just about anything. Right now I've got my lemon balm vinegar, and I've got the dandelion, camellia, and violet vinegar going. And the lemon balm, my intention is to use that as a cleaning vinegar. But if I really like the taste of it when it's all done, I might use that for a cooking, marinating, whatever vinegar. I notice the picture just keeps looking kind of jumpy out of the corner of my eye, so I don't know what's going on there. I hope it's just me, but maybe it's my eyes. Maybe my eyes are jumpy. Um, let's see. And then the other one I'm making is a hair wash vinegar. So the thing is even if you don't like fermented foods, you can still make vinegar and use your vinegars for all kinds of things, including making your own medicinal extracts if you can't have alcohol at all. So I typically prefer using my homemade wine to make most of my herbal extracts. I will use vodka if I'm making a tincture that involves more woody items such as, the turkey tail mushrooms, cinnamon, elderberries aren't a woody item, but I still do a tincture with those. Um, but I mix it with the cloves and the ginger and that kind of stuff. So even if it's not something you're going to consume straight to help with your digestion, you can still learn how to make vinegar, and then you can use it for cleaning, you can use it for washing your hair, you can use it for making medicinal extracts and so much more. So, I do recommend if you're, leery about fermented foods, at least try that. At least get started with the vinegar. Super easy. Okay. And I don't, I should have linked to that too, but, um, I have several videos on vinegar making, and my most recent one, that's the one where it's got the orange thumbnail. That's the one I recommend watching because what's in the picture? I think I was making, what was I making? A juniper and orange peel vinegar for cleaning. And so that's the video I recommend watching, even though I have a ton of them. The reason I recommend that one because I believe it's my most thorough vinegar making video. So, using vinegar as a fabric softener is money saving for sure, right? Yep, you can use it. You can even just throw it in your, use a half cup to a cup of homemade vinegar as a replacement for laundry detergent. Though I do have my own homemade laundry detergent powder that I make, just out of 3 ingredients: baking soda, washing soda, so sodium bicarbonate, sodium carbonate, and salt, whatever cheap salt you have. It's very easy, but, sometimes I'll also throw in some vinegar. But I have done a load of laundry or 2 using only vinegar, homemade vinegar in the wash, just like I add it in there just like you would a liquid, laundry detergent. So, okay, how long is a SCOBY from a homemade kombucha good? I've had one in the original jar for 2 years. It should be, as long as it's still alive, it should be fine. So, yeah, Sharon says SCOBY is good forever if you're keeping it submerged. Yeah, otherwise it will dry out. But some people like to dehydrate their SCOBYs from either their kombucha or their vinegars and then use them as a seasoning. Um, I did try a little bit. I didn't like it. My SCOBYs go to my chickens. They'll eat them. And since I don't make kombucha, the only SCOBYs I get are from my apple, peach vinegars, mostly peach vinegars, especially. I, for those of you who are new, I got a SCOBY that was that tall. Not kidding. From one of my peach vinegars. Peach vinegars make the biggest doggone SCOBYs. I have a picture of it. Um, I think it's on the video that I did on what is a SCOBY and what can you do with it. Yeah, it's massive. For some reason the peach vinegars always make the biggest SCOBYs. The apple, I almost always get SCOBYs on my apple. I get really thin SCOBYs from time to time on my herbal vinegars, but a lot of times I just don't get any on those. But they're still vinegar. So I bought mullein capsules, 500 milligrams each. How could I make an extract with this? Or would it be a good dosage? First of all, Lucy, I cannot tell you anything about dosage of anything for you and what's going to be best. I personally wouldn't use mullein capsules to make an extract out of. I would I would buy loose mullein and then make an extract out of that. In fact, all the mullein extracts I made have been out of loose mullein. Save the capsules. You might want to, because I mean, you're paying so much more money to already have it in capsule form. I wouldn't recommend breaking them open and making an extract out of it. You'd be better off buying like a pound of mullein leaf or less if you want. But I know Frontier Co-op, I think that's where I bought that. It ends up being a really big bag because it's so lightweight, but I think that's where I bought the mullein leaf. And by the way, did I tell you guys that I guess I'm really dumb because all this time I was thinking, I don't know if I just didn't remember something correctly or misread something. I had been thinking that mullein was a perennial. And I'm wondering why my mullein wasn't coming back this year. I was all excited about it coming back so I can actually collect the seed and start using it because it flowered last year. It was its second year last year. Then somebody tells me it's a biennial, and I went, oh no. That means if I do get any mullein that comes up from seed, I did go ahead and start some more seed. But, what that means is that I'm not going to be able to get any flowers for seed until next year. I might be able to get some leaves and be able to start, drying out leaves. But now I realize that I'm going to have to start new plants every year to make sure that every year I have some that's flowering. Dang it. And I can't always trust our weather to, like calendula will come up from seed, but I can't depend on that. There's a lot of annual plants that I cannot depend on coming up from seed that falls. So, I mean, boards usually I have no problem with. I just don't know if there's any boards left in my main garden, so I may have to start some because the chickens I didn't do anything with the garden last year, and the chickens love borage, and they'll eat it as soon as it pops up out of the ground. So until I totally block them off from the main garden area, I won't know if I've got any borage seed remaining in there that will come up. We'll see. But I did find, I think, a borage growing in one of my pots though. So that's good. But yeah, I mean, I don't have to worry about borage or feverfew. It'll always make plenty more plants. But certain things, like I'm concerned that I don't see any mullein coming up from seed, outside that would have fallen last year. So I'm concerned I may not get any. So I'm starting some inside. So, and Lucy, I also have a video on herbs and more for lung health that you might find helpful. That if Deb's just been working so hard on gathering links. Is she my only moderator in here today? But she's really on top of it. She uses one of her accounts for gathering the links and the other one for just staying up on the chat. Borage is a tough one for me to start. You know what? I'm not really that surprised because I'm considering on how well the borage does for me here. I mean, it can take over a garden, but I don't let it bother me if it just starts kind of overtaking like my corn, like overshadowing things. It's got such a short tap root. It's got a fat tap root, but it's only like that deep. It's so easy to rip it out of the ground. If I have plenty, I'll just do that. I don't worry about it. But anyway, it doesn't surprise me considering we're like in opposite climates. So it must really prefer the much wetter and cooler climate that we have. That would be my guess. So, but yeah. Anyway, so herbs and more for lung health. And let's see, did she get it? She got it. Thank you, Deb. So there you go, Lucy. There's a link. You can go check that out. And it does include a written list below it as well. So let me see here. I think I actually covered all the things I wanted to talk about as far as, is fermented foods for everyone. So again, the answer is no, it's not. Most people can benefit from it, but it doesn't mean that you have to eat fermented foods, and it doesn't mean it's for you. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found that helpful, especially T, if you're still here. I hope you enjoyed that too. Especially you. I was thinking of you the whole time. The whole time I was planning out on doing this topic. So let me move on. I've got a secondary sub topic that I wanted to talk about. Maybe not. I'll try to make it quick. And if I get cut off from this point, even if I'm in the middle of my secondary topic, I can always just reshoot that or talk about it on a different day. But I probably won't. I'm not going to say probably. I'm not going to go to the second stream. We'll just end it. So what I wanted to say, to talk about, if I can find it, my notes. I got to find my notes. Where are my notes? Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit that about, and this is going to be like almost a completely different topic, but about the Rumble, my Rumble channel, or just Rumble as a video platform, hosting platform versus YouTube, and how that, the benefits and all that as it pertains to me, so that people can understand why I have a Rumble channel, a separate Rumble channel, but also why you don't see me very active on there. Other than I do put all the same videos over there that I do here, plus extras, but you won't see me as interactive and doing as much in there. And I'll explain that. So obviously I started on YouTube because I don't even think Rumble was even around yet. At least I hadn't even heard of it at that point. And I've been in coming mid-August, I will have been on here for 9 years. Well, not this channel, obviously. This is my second YouTube channel, but my main channel. I've been on YouTube for almost 9 years. And right off the bat, I thought I'd just try it, and right off the bat, I loved it. And I wasn't, I didn't monetize right away. I was kind of holding out. And it was probably about 5 or 6 weeks later that no, it was probably closer to 2 months that I did finally monetize my channel. And right away, amazingly enough, even though my channel was really small still, I was able to make $40 in the first month. Now, that's not very much money. But obviously, as you grow, you get a bigger subscription base, and where you make your money is on views. Obviously, I finally worked up to a point where I could, if I absolutely had to, could live off the income I make off of YouTube. And even though YouTube has changed their algorithms and made it so that now I'm making far, far less. It's one quarter to one third of what I once was making. The pay is still far better than I could ever make on Rumble, ever. So let me talk about Rumble benefits first before I go too much into that. And the reason why I have the Rumble channel was it really I actually opened an account there about 2 years before I started putting videos over there, just so I could have it ready to go if I needed to. Well, then all of a sudden, bam, my channel got um a warning put on it and 3 back-to-back videos removed. And one of them was a video that had been out for about a year or so. Another one was a video that had been out for quite a while, and then another one was kind of a newer video. And that was where I was talking about the benefits, which can be found on the NIH.gov, of a certain essential oil that comes from the pine. And no, I'm not talking about DMSO. That's what a lot of people's mind immediately goes to. This one starts with a T. They both come from the pine tree, though. So it's basically the essential oil of pine. And even though I did source the information from places like the NIH and other places about its medicinal benefits that have been used for centuries. Yeah, I suddenly the rules changed and such things were no longer allowed to talk about on YouTube. So when that happened, I'm like, well, time for me to use my backup channel. So I moved the main video. I didn't put them all over there, but the main one that on that particular topic got moved over there. And so I figured, well, since I'm here, I might as well start putting some other videos up over here. Now, Rumble is kind of a pain when it comes to actually uploading, um, especially if you have really slow internet, which thankfully I don't anymore. But that was quite the hassle, because if your internet cuts out in the middle of an upload, you got to start the whole thing over again. It doesn't matter if it would just hit 100%. You got to start it over. And at that time, it could take 8 hours, 6 hours for a video to upload to Rumble. And so it was so incredibly frustrating, especially when that would happen. But I felt the need to put my videos over there, not only so I could have a place to put videos that were no longer allowed on YouTube, but also just to kind of grow that. And in case anything happened to my channel on YouTube, I'd have this backup place for where my videos could still be found. And of course, through the years, they've added more things to the taboo list. One of those being a certain precious metal liquid that we're no longer allowed to talk about. That was right around 2 years ago that was added to the list. Another one is you are not allowed to share alternative methods or alternative options to, and we're talking natural, healthy alternative options to store-bought baby formula, for the sake of those ladies who, for whatever reason, cannot nurse their children. There's all kinds of things that can happen that can, or even adopted babies. There's all kinds of reasons why some ladies are unable to nurse their children. So I like to make that clear because sometimes people will make moms who are unable to nurse feel really guilty for not nursing their children and having to rely on formula. Well, I I would avoid, well, I better not say it, but at any rate, because I'll get in trouble. But that's one of the taboo things now. You're not allowed to talk about these alternative options, even those that were used for hundreds of years in such an event where a mom could not nurse their own children. So having a Rumble channel means that I still have a place where I can have those videos, where people can find them and have access to them since they're not allowed on YouTube. So my Rumble channel is always linked in the description. And if you go there, you can go to the playlist tab, just like how YouTube has a playlist tab. There's a playlist tab on my channel over there on Rumble, and you can go to the specific playlist that is, I think it's called videos banned on YouTube. So anytime a new topic or another video has to get removed from YouTube, it goes into that playlist so that people can kind of scroll through there and see what the topics are. And if they're interested in them, they can watch them. So that is the benefit of having a Rumble channel. However, there was a short period of time where I actually got up to where I was making $1 a day on Rumble. Ooh, a big $30 a month. Now I'm down to an average of about 40 to 50 cents a day. That's the average. Some days 17 cents, some days maybe 75 cents on a really good day. So with that said, and my time being very, very precious, I just don't have, I only put as much time as I absolutely have to in my Rumble channel just to keep the videos going out there so that they're there. Now, I will reply to questions under my Rumble videos. When people comment, I usually try to give them a thumbs up. I don't know if they know it's me that's giving them a thumbs up. Like I can give a heart on YouTube and people know that I recognized their comment, which is a lot of times the reason why I do that. So people know that I did see your comment. I don't have anything to say, but I did see your comment. And then if people have a question, and I have it set up over there where I actually get email notifications. I don't do that with YouTube with comments because I would get so many I'd not be able to keep up on them. So it's easier for me to scroll through the comments through my dashboard. Whereas with Rumble, it's easier for me to just depend on email notifications. But let's see. So that is definitely, as my time becomes ever more precious, I had to stop taking extra time of gathering Rumble video links, because what I do is I copy and paste the description box from YouTube over to Rumble. But then for a while, I was going through the extra steps, which could take a while, of them finding the Rumble videos and then switching out the YouTube link that I might have under there with a Rumble video link. And that just adds so much extra work when you're only making 17 cents to maybe 60 cents a day. It's just not worth adding more stress to my life. It's not even just about the time, it's about the stress levels. I've had to, and by the way, this is my topic for next week. I'm going to be talking about time management again, and the importance of prioritizing and cutting the things that just add, even if it's just a few minutes, even if it's just a little bit extra stress. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do to stay healthy and to keep, I'm not getting cut off, am I? This is acting weird. Okay. And to keep your priorities in the right place. So I know that probably sounds really selfish to some people. That's like, I just am not going to pour that much extra time into Rumble when I make so little for the time I pour in there. Because here's the thing, whether you're watching me on Rumble, whether you're watching me on YouTube, whether you're reading my Patreon post or my Substack posts, none of these things are behind a paywall. I don't have a members only on any of my channels. I don't hide my Patreon or Substack posts from people who are not donating anything. Everything is open for everyone for free. So I don't ask for people to donate money. I don't expect people to donate money. I do this work so people can have the information for free. So whether you're watching me on Rumble or YouTube, you're still getting it for free. And so when people get irritated at me for not taking that extra time over on Rumble to put all those to find all those links yet again, because I already had to take the time to gather them up for the YouTube, but now I'm expected to do it for Rumble too. And it's just something I had to cut. Just remember, I'm not charging for that. Just remember that by you watching my videos on Rumble, I'm taking a massive cut in pay because I make far more money, even though it's still not a lot. I make way more money on YouTube when people watch my videos there. So if you're one, obviously those people that are in chat right now are people who do watch me on YouTube, but probably on both my channels. And you're like, well, because I've had people ask me this question, well, should I watch your videos on Rumble or should I watch them on YouTube? Well, there's your answer. Watch them on YouTube. My pay is better. And that makes it far more worth my time. Now, if you want to go to Rumble and let them play over there to help, that's fine. And I appreciate it, but don't do that. Don't do the extra work, because if I'm only making a few cents for, I mean, for you to go watch one video over there, I don't, I might be making a fraction of a cent off your view, as my guess. So, um, yeah. So that's not going to be worth your time. And I don't expect you to do that. So if you don't mind and you're not an absolute YouTube Google hater, please, you're doing me a favor by watching my videos on YouTube rather than on Rumble. Now, if it comes down to it and I have to shut down my YouTube channels or they get shut down, then yes, all of my time and energy will then be poured into the Rumble channel. And I can only hope and pray that I can make enough money off of doing that to make it worth it. Because if I can't, I'm going to have to find some other way. Because I like the arrangement I have where I can share information with people and it doesn't cost them anything but the time to listen. And they can even set, if it's a pre-recorded video, they can even, if they think I talk too slow, some people, believe it or not, think I talk too slow, they can always speed it up, and some people do. And if you think I talk too fast, you can slow down the playback speed as well. If you didn't know that, it's down in the settings, that little cog down there that you see at the bottom, just under the screen, you can do that. You can speed it up or slow it down. You click on that, you look for speed settings, and you can, you can slow it down so it sounds like I've had a little too much to drink, or you can speed it up where I sound like a chipmunk. Whatever floats your boat. Mods are here to learn also. Well, good. Sometimes I feel like there's a lot of you that I really don't have anything that I can educate you on, because you already know as much or more than I do. But if nothing else, we sure enjoy the interaction. So anyway, I just wanted to get that out there because I had someone get a little, lately I've had a couple people get a little irritated on Rumble at me for not taking that extra time to gather the Rumble links. And it's just like, I get it, but it also kind of frustrates me a little bit that I'm already doing all this for them to have free content, yet they want more of my time for free. And that's kind of a hard one for me. I'm trying again, I'm trying to be gracious about it because I know a lot of people just don't understand the kind of work that goes into doing these things, and they don't understand that my time is very valuable. And again, it's not even just about the prioritizing the time so I can spend time with, quality time with my grandkids when they're here and not just be so absorbed in my channels and my work. I want to be able to spend quality time with them. So that means on the days they're not here, I have to streamline everything, especially now that we're getting into garden season or we're in gardening season. And so there's a lot going on out there. And if today's not a nice day, so I don't mind sitting here as long as I am able to because it is not a nice day. It's not terrible. It's not pouring down rain. It's just not nice. It's not the kind of day you want to work in the garden. I'll say that. But like all this last week, anyway, all this last week, it was beautiful every single day. And so Patrick and I were able to get out there and get so much done in the garden, but that meant other things had to be put on hold. Okay. And that means work that I could have been doing on my channel. I certainly didn't have time to take the extra time for gathering Rumble links. So I hope people will understand and respect that instead of trying to demand more out of my time. Because if that's the way it's going to be, I'll just quit doing the things that are causing more stress. And that might mean I'll stop putting my videos over on Rumble, except for those videos that I am not allowed to have on YouTube. Because as it is right now, I'm putting all the same content over there. But if it comes right down to it, it'll be okay. Well, I'm only going to put videos on Rumble that I can't have on YouTube, because if I can't make it worth my time and people are going to complain about the time I do put into it, then it's not worth it for me to stress myself out over that. So anyway, yes, I just wanted to share that. I hope I don't sound like I'm being a whiner. I just want people to understand where I'm coming from. We all have busy lives. I know a lot of you that are taking the time to sit in here, or you're probably just letting it play while you're doing work, and that's awesome. I appreciate the fact that you can do stuff while you're listening, and I appreciate that you just let it play. That does help me quite a bit. But we all have busy lives, and we all have to prioritize and balance out those things that are most important to us. You know, fellowship needs to be important because it's a way that we can unwind and de-stress and find like-minded people that can just help give us that peace of mind to know that we're not alone in doing things. And that's one of the reasons I enjoy these live shows. So you guys can talk with each other. I can chat with you. You can chat with me. Can I start crying too? I cry. I usually end up breaking it out into tears for something anyway. I get so emotional. But I don't have a violin. That's what I need next, is a little tiny violin. Beep, 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 beep. Oh, what else was I going to say? And if you're a believer, making time for that fellowship with like-minded believers. And gardening is very healing to the soul as well as to the body. And so we got to make time to do those things, and not for all the little tiny petty stuff that people want to complain about. If you've got people that are just trying to leech more of your time and seem to have no consideration that you are a real person with a real life, then it might be time to just cut where you have to cut. But that kind of goes into my topic for next week. So I'm not going to talk any more about that. I'll talk about something else because I want to save that for next week. Let me come back here because I know I had a couple other things. What was it? There was something else I was going to talk about. Let's see. Oh, I know what it was. So some of you know that got a question. Do you have more than one video on Rumble about alternative baby formula options? No, it's just the one, Brandy, and I believe it's in that playlist. I know it's in I have 2 playlists that it should be in. One of them is on, uh, baby stuff. I don't remember the title of it, and I believe it is its own playlist, and then it should be in the playlist that is if you're looking at my Rumble channel, it should be in the playlist, that I mentioned earlier, YouTube's banned or YouTube videos banned on YouTube. It should be in that. I know intended once I had to remove it from YouTube, I intended on putting it in that playlist, so hopefully I did. So, Tammy, did you leave? No wonder. She was here. She's back. You're confusing me, lady. Past me now. The storm's past you now. Well, good. Yeah, I know that was kind of crazy. What was that? Wednesday or last Sunday or something? Anyway, so the eggs, so the fertilized eggs are the eggs that I put in my incubator. So this is my 3rd time incubating eggs from my own chickens. The first time I think I put in like 8 or 9 eggs. I only ended up with did I have 3 or 4 chicks? I had 3 chicks. 1 hen, 2 roosters. My second try, I got a small incubator. I didn't want a big one because I knew I don't have space to do that many chicks at one time. So my second one, I decided I'll put in 11 eggs. I was going to put in 9 again, and I put in 11 because some of them are not going to be fertilized and some aren't going to make it. I ended up with 3 chicks, a hen, and 2 roosters. Again. So this time I decided to fill the whole thing up. It only holds a dozen eggs, so I only put 1 extra egg in there than I did the last time. I filled that thing up. Now, I checked the eggs the other night, when it was dark, got my little flashlight. Now, wouldn't you know it that it looks like every single egg got fertilized? Antonio's been a lot busier this year than he was last year, for certain. Maybe it's because he's more experienced now. It looks like every single egg is fertilized, and I'm thinking now for some of you who have big farms and all that, you're probably like, "Well, that's nothing." Yeah, I get it. But remember, as far as all this goes, the gardens, the chickens, it's all right here in this little shy 1/3 acre lot in a neighborhood. So I only have so much space to work with because the house as a whole, we've got this room here is 1,100 square foot studio, and it's connected to the rest of our house, which is all together. The rest of it is about another 1,300 square feet, and it's ranch style. There's no up, so it's like that's taken up real estate. Then we have a 1,200-foot shop. Then we have the chicken coop, and we have the firewood storage, and some decks and other things taking up space. So I'm trying to squeeze everything into this little space. We are expanding out more and more as far as trying to grow other types of things at the other piece of property, but I have to be very specific about what I grow out there because the elk will come in and eat it all or stomp it down. So I got to be I got to plant things out there that the elk aren't going to destroy because you have to have an incredibly tall fence to keep elk out. And we'd have to put not only a very tall fence, it'd be expensive and a lot of work or a lot of work. So, with that said, if all of those eggs hatch out, I'm going to have 12 baby chicks. And of course, probably 11 of them will be roosters and 1 hen. Again, it's like 1 hen out of hopefully not. I would like it would be nice if I could at least get a ratio of 50-50. It'd be preferable if I could get more hens and roosters, but because there's so many of them and I only have room for so many chickens, uh, I might have to be giving some away. I already have someone who will take one of my roosters that I inevitably will get, and the any other roosters I get out of this will have to go to freezer camp once they're big enough. That's just the way it's gonna be. I do have a couple of more hens I'll probably take out. One is just she I don't know, she just lays really weird eggs. For some reason, her eggs are always like not always, half the time they're very thin shell and they break before you can get to them. And the other half the time they're just weird. I mean, they're fine eggs, when the eggs don't break. And I know people say, "Oh, she's not getting enough calcium," and that could be true, but she's eating all the same feed and scratching at the same ground the rest of my chickens are. Claire, I want, she's my last remaining Buff Orpington that we got 8 years ago, the last one, and she's laying right now. She's starting to show definite signs of age, and I'm not sure how long she's gonna last, but I wanna keep her as long as she's laying and see how long she goes. She's been such a good chicken, such a good chicken. It's gonna be really hard taking her out. Not that it wasn't hard taking out some of those other Buff Orpingtons that were really good chickens. And then the one that lays the thin-shelled eggs, she's one of the ones that likes to get up on my deck all the time. She's one of the 2. She's the worst one of the 2, so I really don't mind taking her out once I have some more laying hens to replace her with, especially since half of her eggs are inedible because 'cause they're broken before you can get to them. And like I said, not all of them are thin-shelled. Some of them are very thin, and then the other ones are like they're just weird. They're like the egg itself that, it's edible, it's good, there's nothing wrong with it, but the shell is, like, gritty and has these weird white rings, like, not on the end, but, like so if you're laying the egg on its side, it has, like, usually 2 white rings, and I'm like, "What causes that?" I haven't looked it up yet. But that only happens on the eggs that aren't thin-shelled. The thin-shelled eggs are very pale in color, like the color of a Buff Orpington, so I kept thinking when I'd find those, it was a Buff Orpington egg until I saw her lay one of those eggs out in the middle of the yard. I just saw her do it, and it broke as soon as it hit the ground. So I'm like, "That's you doing that." So anyway, it's very strange. So, okay. Yeah, but she's happy? What's that? What who's happy? What am I missing? Sounds like a chicken dinner. Yeah, chicken dinner for sure. So, yeah, I might I might end up and my little brooder box that we made last year out of a couple of Misfits Market boxes that we cut a hole and then put, like, a piece of clear polycarbonate so that they can see out and get more sun. I don't know that that's gonna be big enough for 12 chicks. It might be for about a week tops, but thankfully, Patrick made that bigger brooder out in the that's sitting out in the chicken coop, so I might just have to move them out there a lot sooner, and since there'd be so many of them, if they all hatch out, they can keep each other warm. There's no way I'm plugging a heat plate in out there. That's the other thing. If they all hatch out, I didn't get a very big heat plate because I hadn't planned on having that many chicks at a time. Are they all gonna fit under the heat plate? Like I said, though, they'll have each other to keep warm. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. So anyway, I thought that was kind of funny that it looks like they're all fertilized. So, what else? Was there anything else? Any other garden stuff? I know that in tomorrow's this and that video, I do talk about garden stuff, but I think I've done stuff since then. Yes, I have. I think since then, I don't remember now if because I recorded on Wednesday. I don't remember what day I moved my tomatoes out to the greenhouse. It was either just before or just after I shot that. And then I moved half of my peppers. I waited a few more days and moved half of my peppers out there. Because the peppers are they're not so big that they're outgrowing those little pots I started them in. But I thought I'd go ahead and move half of them out. And so far, they're doing pretty good. So uh, I'm happy with that. I see my glass gem corn is popping up. out of the pot I put it in, but the corn that we got from his dad hasn't started coming up yet. And I'd really like to get at least a couple of viable plants, and I might even just be able to I just don't think I would trust planting them out at the other piece of property. I can see the elk eating those. But what I might do is plant, and hopefully I won't get cross-pollination since they're on completely opposite sides of the house, but I might plant a couple out front. And so they'd have this whole, house separation. Hopefully that won't be too close because I would still like to grow my glass gem corn. And then once and Patrick has been tilling up the main bed, so pretty soon I'll be planting in there. And then I plan on making a small patch of, well, maybe a small patch of barley and a small patch of einkorn. And just seeing it won't be enough to feed us, but I want to see if they'll grow in our climate. If they look like they do well back here, then that would be something we would consider planting, just tilling up a big section out at our other piece of property and then planting out there. I just don't want to do it yet until I don't want to do all that until I know whether or not it's going to be worth it. Yes, I grow comfrey. I grow it in the front yard garden section, and I got more I need to dig up because even though my comfrey is sterile, it still will spread underground and you'll get plants. So I like that it does that. I like that I can get plenty because I use a lot of it through the year. But I do have some I want to dig up to make some more space. And my lovage, by the way, is going crazy. I'm so happy with that. I actually cooked with it the other night. So I'm going to be doing more of that as it continues to grow. And I would like to put at least one more lovage in the back. It gets really tall. I've been digging up more marshmallow plants to make more space for other things. And just a lot of it's just a little cleanup here and there. The glass gem corn, I did try, it's a pop corn. Excuse me. And I did try popping it some one year, but it didn't pop very good. I might try it again. It might have just been that year. Maybe it wasn't mature enough or something. We have such a short growing season, and corn takes a really long time for it to. It's so late in the season when it really finally starts to grow that a lot of times you just don't. It doesn't. I don't think it gets as mature as it needs to get to pop, but it gets mature enough that it's a beautiful color. They're not very big ears. I don't know if other people get ears this big or not, but typical size is maybe about that long and about that big around. But it does make a great grinding corn for cornmeal. But the color of the cornmeal is kind of a purplish gray because of all the colors in there. But I've made cornbread out of it, and it was good. So I like having it for that, if nothing else. But like I said, I might try popping some again. And maybe it was just that year or that particular batch or whatever. And just see if I can get it to pop good. Because if I can, then I'll know I'll have that. But I can't imagine the popcorn pieces would be very big because the kernels aren't huge. But we'll see. I'll play around with it some more. So Deb's nasturtium started blooming yesterday already. Mine's the ones in the greenhouse are only this tall. And then I do have the stuff I planted in pots out on the deck is just starting to pop up out of the ground there. And then the stuff that's in the greenhouse, those will get transplanted out into one of the arched cattle panel areas once it's warm enough. So I like to start some in the greenhouse and give it a head start because out there it just doesn't stay quite warm enough for the nasturtium to do really good as far as getting started. Where on the deck they do better. So that's why I start some in pots. But I also like having some that's a little farther ahead so I can start collecting leaves and flowers from them. Love that nasturtium. And nasturtium, because it tastes like a radish, it works really great as a kimchi. You don't get the same crunch that you would from a cabbage, but it does make a great tasting kimchi. And I love, love, love the leaves and flowers in salad. Mike almost pulled them thinking they were dollar weed. I told him he's not allowed to weed. Right? I don't know how many of my echinacea plants that my husband has destroyed. Not on purpose. Not by pulling them up, but one time he tilled over one because it hadn't started coming up out of the ground yet. So he didn't know it was there. And I forgot to clarify, don't till this part. So I lost that one. Another time he was weed eating around one and cut it clear down and it never came back. Never came back. It was like middle of summer, so it was growing, it had flowers. It never came back. That's why I got to start echinacea every single year. About growing grains, I think I will start some in a tire and let acclimate. That's a good idea because the tire would help. I always forget about that option. I haven't tried growing in tires yet, but I know some people kind of freak out because they worry about the toxins of the rubber, and I can understand that, but it can be a good way to get things started in colder climates because the black is going to absorb the heat from the sun and then heat up the soil. And plus it gives you more of a raised bed too. So I considered it. I just haven't, I always forget. I know my neighbor back here had some really big tires that must have come from a tractor or something. He's growing strawberries in them. Yes, herbs get mowed many times. Let's see. Well, poo, I just got here and now I'm losing signal and have to. Oh no. I'm sorry, Michelle. Gosh, tornado sirens going off. Okay, well, you take care and stay safe. Pray that God will protect you. See, I used to grow my thyme in tires. Huh. Actually, my thyme, the one that grows on the south facing side, that thing just explodes. I've already done a second harvest off of it this season. I did that today. So in tomorrow's video, I talk about it, but that was Wednesday that I shot that, but I just cut more back today to dehydrate. So it does really good. And then I have a little thyme and violet garden in pots on my deck out here. And so that thyme doesn't do as good, but it does okay. Boy, I've already been on here for an hour and 22 minutes. Can you believe it? And now Tyler comes in. He says rain is coming soon. You expect me to be there? Just kidding. I know some of you might not realize this, but when I first set up my channel and was going into people's live feeds, since a lot of people didn't know who I was, and I hadn't really started the channel yet. I hadn't started putting out videos yet, but I'd already changed the name of my account to Rain Country Homestead. And I was thinking of starting a channel, but I was visiting a lot of live shows during that time. And people didn't know who I was. They didn't know my name, so they just called me Rain, and that became my nickname was Rain because Rain Country Homestead. So yeah. But then, once I started putting out videos and people knew my name, they started calling me Heidi. But I don't care. You can call me Rain. You can call me Heidi. Y'all Rainiacs anyway, right? As T so aptly calls you. I love that. I got to get back to that. I got to get back to the Rainiac name. North of Aurora. Is that Colorado? I might have missed that. Let's see. Trying to see what state you're in, Michelle. I saw Aurora. My brother lives in Aurora. He's actually moving back to Oregon. We're in Washington, but my brothers grew up in Oregon with our dad. I grew up in Washington with mom. But at any rate, he's lived in Aurora, Colorado for a long time. and finally retired. And now he's moving back to Oregon. He's going to be closer to us again. I'm so glad. That means he's coming up to the family camp out this summer. Yay! I haven't seen him in years. I haven't seen him since 2019 when he came out this way for Mom's funeral. And so that's Mark is the oldest, so that's Michael I'm talking about. Mark I usually get to see once a year, but I didn't get to see him last year. And let's see, what was I going to say about Michael? Michael, you guys probably seen some of his work because he was a computer graphics. He did a lot of work for places like the History Channel, mostly the Sci-Fi Channel, I think it was. In fact, I think he designed the logo for the Sci-Fi Channel. And I have a picture of him around here somewhere where he was at some kind of event and got his picture taken with, now I can't think of his name. Landisberg. Steve Landisberg. Some of you will have no clue who that is, but some of you who are at least my age and up might know who Steve Landisberg was. I believe he was the one on the Barney Miller show, right? The one who had like the total deadpan. He was total deadpan all the time, but he was like the funniest guy on there. So yeah, he had his picture taken with him because they were at this same event. And it was because of his job. So it's kind of cool. I'm really excited about getting to see him this summer. See what I would not turn that down. What was it? What is it? I keep missing stuff because I keep blabbing. See, Michelle says, see, we have another Southwest Missouri person here. So did you say you're in Missouri then, not Colorado? Okay, Missouri. All right. Yeah, I think Aurora is one of those town names that is in a few different states, kind of like Aberdeen. I think there's Aberdeen, and like we have an Aberdeen, Washington. It's about 2 hours south of us. But I think, and what's that, Springfield? How many states have a town named Springfield? Now, I don't know if we have one in Washington State, but there's like so many Springfields. Springfields everywhere. I don't think there's very many towns, though, called Forks. Now, I know there's a town called Grand Fork, but I don't know where that is. But I don't know if there's many towns called Forks. That's quite, yes. That was genius, T. Yeah, she came up with that several years ago because we were trying to find basically a name for all our followers. And she came up with that. And I don't know what happened. Somewhere along the way, somebody else had another idea that they really liked. They were both good, but Rainiac was my favorite. But then I don't know, it kind of fell by the way. I think it's because it was more being used while I was doing the live shows back then. And then I stopped doing live shows for years because our internet kept getting slower and slower and slower, and it was getting harder. And it was just like, plus life getting busier because it kept buffering and it was a pain. And now we have Starlink, and that made a huge difference. That's the only reason I was able to start doing live shows again and actually have videos upload within a few minutes, half hour at the most. Massive difference, because it was getting to where some days it would take 12 hours to upload a 20-minute video, maybe 6 to 8 hours for a 15-minute video. That's insane. That was with CenturyLink. It was a constant issue. So the weather guesser said it would rain today at 3 p.m. and at 3:08 it's here. Hey, that's pretty close. That's pretty close. See, the weathermen here have a really easy job. All they have to say is rain, and about 90% of the time they're going to be right. So, and then if we get sun, we're like, wow, we actually got sun instead of rain. Yay! Kind of like last week. It was, it was so nice to be able to get out there. I tell you, it does a soul and spirit some good when you can actually get out in the sun in a place where you hardly ever get to see the sun. And you got everybody running outside and mowing their lawns and looking up at that big bright ball of fire in the sky and wondering where it came from. Oh, it was great. So I thank the Lord that we got a chance to do that. But I tell you what, yesterday I was so sore from all the digging and pulling and transplanting and digging some more and and tackling the doggone morning glory, aka choke weed, aka bindweed that's coming up everywhere in my front yard garden. Thankfully, it's just the front yard garden right now. Oh my goodness. I don't think I'll ever get ahead on it ever. But yeah, it's just this garden out here, and then a little bit into my little narrow strip of herb garden here on the south side. So far, nothing in my west herb garden or in my back gardens, thankfully. But my west herb garden definitely needed some serious cleaning up. So mostly out of that, it was getting that stupid buttercup out, because if you don't get the buttercup out, the creeping buttercup, it will definitely choke out everything. Even your most hardy plants, it can choke it out if you're not careful. So getting that up, thankfully the soil on this side is really loose, so it's pretty easy getting that out. However, I keep seeing a new holly tree coming up. Okay, here's the weird thing. I know holly has some health benefits, but by the time I realized I got a holly tree coming up, we can't get it out. Now here's the weird thing. So that's in the west herb garden. Okay. It's way over there. Over on the southeast corner of the house, many years ago, there was a holly tree that we took Princess Buttercup. But we took that holly tree out years ago because it was getting too big. It was kind of, we wanted to put a gate and a fence in there, and it was just in the way. So we took that out. Then all of a sudden, a few years ago, way over on this side, we have holly trees coming up. And I always realize it too late, and I can't just grab them and pull them up. We've tried one of them, Patrick tried attaching his winch to it, or maybe it wasn't his winch, but a rope to his truck and yanking it out. Nope. So I don't know what to do, but I need to start paying closer attention. I think is the reason I always see it too late is because I always pile a lot of leaves over here, and they stay fluffy, unlike other places, because it doesn't get as much rain right there. And so those things can be growing under this fluff of leaves and you won't realize it. So I don't know. I think I might just give in and say, okay, well, holly trees are pretty, and I think they do have health benefits if I remember correctly. But I don't remember if it's the berries, the leaves, or both. I keep thinking one of them's toxic, but maybe I'm thinking of mistletoe because mistletoe is supposed to be toxic. Apparently, I don't know. At any rate, um, but yeah, but the thing is, I don't know. The holly tree that we had out here was actually two holly trees growing side by side. One was male and one was female. One got berries and one did not. I think that's correct. So the only thing we can think is years ago, some birds ate some berries and pooped them out over here, and it's just taken years for them to finally germinate and grow. I think it's kind of crazy. We got that whole oak tree done in a day. That whole oak tree. The buttercup, man, that stuff is so crazy. When I was a little girl, I used to think buttercup was so pretty. It is a pretty flower. The plant is terrible. It just, yeah, I've had it kill a massive, huge oregano plant I had. And then one year it moved in and just totally choked it out. It's so frustrating. I still have some oregano, but all of my oregano plants have taken a hit in some way. So thankfully, I took some steps last year when I realized that my oregano is really struggling. So I dug some up and put it in a pot here. And then I found another one this year growing and then moved it into an area where it can get more sun. After, of course, taking all the buttercup out of there. Grr, I really got to get going. I've been talking for way too long. My throat's holding up though. When I just had that little coughing fit earlier, so I'm surprised. Um, Speaking of trees, okay, I gotta tell you guys something. So, Patrick shot a video. Of course, it's gonna be 6 weeks or so. It's actually publishing June 11th because of the way I spread his videos out and always have them published on a Wednesday. I'm really far ahead of my videos. But at any rate, this video, I just finished it this morning. He shot the other day of him. Okay, so a couple of years ago, we ended up with these massive, I think it was like 3 years ago, just massive spruce rounds. They're about, oh, that they were cut about that wide, the cut sides, but they were close to like 5 feet across. Well, I shouldn't say massive, but they were big. And a lot of times people just don't even want to hassle with them because they're too hard to try to split up because they're so wide. And but Patrick has a trick on being able to split those up. And so I just finished editing and uploading to YouTube. Now I got to go take it, download it, and then upload it to Rumble because when I do that, it uploads it to Rumble faster and makes that job go a little easier. Um, at any rate, it's a fun one. There are some of Patrick's videos are just I hate working on them because they can be several hours long and there's so much involved in what he's doing that it's just ugh. But when it's a video like that where you can do a lot of speeding up and zooming in and then cutting some parts out if he's got enough in there because a lot of times he'll just turn the camera on and just let it record. And so then you can kind of, you can take some of the best clips and squeeze them in there and then make it's only going to be an 11-minute long video, but I think it's going to be fun. I actually really enjoy working on the kind that he does like that. Anything where it's like he's sawing up lumber on the wood miser or that kind of stuff or doing work with his heavy equipment. Those are so fun to work on. I enjoy working on those more than I do my own for certain. But anyways, I think you guys will like that one. You like seeing his little trick that he did and how he was able to use a wood splitter and some of his heavy equipment and that big spruce round. And that's how he's been, we ended up with several of them. We hauled them over here knowing that he was eventually going to turn them somehow into firewood. You did an awesome clearing with only 3 people. Wait, what I miss now? I'm always missing something. It's because I'm rambling. Tammy, I'm glad that you love his videos. His videos tend to be a lot of work and they're usually, so when you go into your dashboard on YouTube, for those of you who don't have a channel, what you'll always see is the last 10 videos that have published. And then they're ranked. So, from 1 to 10. And his videos are almost always in 10th place because they get the least amount of views, which I understand because we have a far greater following of women, especially women in the age bracket of 50 to 70. And so most of his videos aren't going to pertain to them. And so I do appreciate it when ladies go in there and watch his videos and give it a thumbs up and say something. I appreciate that. We both appreciate that. But the nice thing about his videos is there a lot of them, some of them are things that there's going to be a lot of people that won't, a lot of people, no matter what they're into, it won't pertain to them, but there might be that one person that can, glean something from it. But then there's videos that make it through the long haul, like the changing the hydraulic oil in his backhoe. That one's done great for years. And a few others, and some of his firewood ones like that, or his wood miser ones do decent. But anyway, but his are almost always in 10th place. But guess what? The video that I had to take down, edit, and then re-upload that published on Friday, that one did terribly. It did terrible. I thought it would do really good because it seemed like the first time it published, it did really good. It did terrible. It was on the bottom. It was in 10th place out of my last 10 videos. And it was the, natural versus allopathic medicine. I shot it 2 years ago, so just before that certain precious metal liquid was banned on YouTube. And so somebody pointed it out to me. I was watching this video and you mentioned that in here. I'm like, great, great. Another video I got to take down. That's okay. I'll just edit that part out. Now I got another video to go up. So it's funny because it was the first video in the series, but there's several more videos in that series. So the way I'm talking in there, people are like, "Oh, you got a new series." It's like, no, actually, it's not new. That video is actually 2 years old. I had to re-upload it. I did add the little disclaimer, well, not disclaimer, but the little note in text at the beginning of the video so people would understand it was shot in 2022. So, gosh, almost 3 years ago. Huh. Anyway, now that we're into 2025, good gravy. Roots and Refuge does that. Refuge does that too. With her husband's videos. I don't know. To be honest, I know she's a really sweet lady. I've probably watched one of her videos years ago. I actually don't have time to watch most other people's videos. I mean, yeah, I just don't. I follow a lot of channels, but most of them I just don't even watch. Sometimes I just follow them, so it's like, especially if they're channels that have been good, like Mary's Nest, for instance. She's got a great channel. She's a great lady, but I don't have time for most of her videos. I hardly ever get to watch them, but I still follow her because she's been such a big help. But a lot of you might not realize this, as big as Mary's channel is. I started my channel a couple of years before she started hers, and she was following me. And she was a big supporter. I mean, always commenting all the time watching every video. Then she started her own channel, and so I gave her a shout out, and her channel just blew up practically overnight. She did so good for herself, and then she wrote a book, and she did all this other stuff, and so she's done really well. I think that's cool, and yet she hasn't let that get to her head, and she still will mention my channel from time to time, and it helps me out. So it's like I helped her out, now she helps me out, and so it's really kind of this cool thing. Same thing with Deep South Homestead, except for then I bypassed them. They started their channel long before me. They gave me a shout out, which helped get my channel going. And then somewhere along the way, I ended up um, outgrowing them, which kind of really surprised me. But I make sure I return the favor and give them a shout out too, even though I hardly have time to ever watch any of their videos. I try to catch a few minutes of a live now and then, but it just doesn't happen very often. At any rate, yeah, I wouldn't know how long her videos are. I have some that are longer. I try to have a mix where I have short videos and long videos, and then I mean, talk about so long. Look, I've been on here for an hour and 43 minutes. That's long. Of course, you guys can come and go as you please. Anyway, she's got another book coming out in August. But here's the thing you got to remember. Some people like the long videos. Some people like short videos. Some people like them somewhere in between. I get people of all kinds. People who don't like long videos will watch my short ones. People who prefer the longer videos will watch those. Some people prefer that in between time frame that's 15 to 20 minutes ish. So yeah, I try to make things so that there's something for everyone. I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm the original though. So many newbies use the info you put out years ago, but I do like Mary's Nest. They do? See, I wouldn't know that. As long as they give my channel a shout out and say where they got it, that's all. That's all. I mean, when I first started my channel, if I learned something from Stacy, I would make sure I would say that in my video. Now I'm to the point where if it's something that I learned several years ago, I'm like, I don't even remember who I learned that from now, but I learned it from someone. And then some things I just come up with on my own. But yeah, we all learn from something or from a blog or somebody else's video, and as long as people give people shout outs, That's cool. We're all helping each other out. Oh, really? Oh, that's why she has so many shorts coming out. I've seen a lot of her shorts come out, but I haven't seen her lives. Oh, no, she doesn't do lives. You're saying some of her videos are longer than my lives. Then she breaks them to lots of shorts. Okay. Yeah. Now the shorts can be helpful. And you'll see me doing a lot more shorts as, with garden season. But you don't make much money off shorts. You really don't. The most that they do is they kind of help get your channel out there. But you don't make very much money off of them. I might make 30 to 50 cents off of one, and that's over like a period of time. But I haven't paid much attention to those, like what I make off of them. I like doing them. They're fun and they're easy. But I like mostly using them for doing his updates, like the garden updates, like, okay, here's what's going on today. Here's what's since I'm so far ahead on my regular videos, the shorts are perfect for that. The shorts and the this and that videos and the lives. But what was I gonna say? But then also to like with the tomato video that came out the other day, that was actually obviously my tomatoes aren't that far along. They're only this tall. So that was a compilation I made and then linked people back to the video I did be almost 2 years ago now on growing tomatoes from start to finish. So that helps get that out there. But I think what gets the videos more views, like the longer videos, or when I do a post like I did today of the lemon balm and then link to the lemon balm video. Though I don't know how much time went by before somebody notified me that I forgot to put the link in the post. Dumb. I had all laid out to put the link in there and then forgot to go back and put the link in there. It's in there now. The one on the lemon balm on my main channel. Anyway, people, I got to get going. I tell you, it's like I so enjoy being here that and talking at you guys because that's what I feel like I'm doing. I feel like I'm talking. I feel like it's more of a monologue, but I still feel like we're communicating back and forth. It's just that I'm doing all the talking. Anyway, I really got to get going. So, thank you to everyone for being here, for always coming in and supporting me, for being so kind and loving and generous of your time with me. I appreciate that. I know, especially this time of year, you're all busy. You're all trying to squeeze in a little bit here and there. I get it. I totally understand. And so that makes me appreciate it even more. And again, thanks for watching. Take care and God bless. Hope you all have a great day or rest of your